Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Sarah Bjorkman. I am an OB-GYN and I'm also 13 weeks pregnant. And my husband, who's a pediatrician, and I have been documenting this pregnancy journey as we go, kind of figuring out if everything we've been telling parents and moms over the years really stacks up. And today I thought, as I'm finishing up the first trimester, I would share with all of you some of the things I wish that I had known at the beginning. And I also polled our Instagram followers and said, hey mamas, what are the things you wish you knew about the first trimester? So I want to share that with all of you today. It is the nitty gritty stuff nobody really talks about, but all of those things you really want to know. So stay tuned. We're going to get to it right after this. So let's get to it. What are the things I wish I knew about the first trimester? And keep in mind, I'm an OB-GYN and have been counseling mamas about this for years, and still was a little surprised by the first trimester. So I think one of the big themes that came up on Instagram that I definitely feel was this comment said that you would be tired. Yeah, I know we all know that, but I mean like really tired. And I think that first trimester fatigue is just kind of a surprise and a kick in the butt. Like, I have always been a napper and always really liked to sleep, but dang, I could sleep anywhere, anytime, take a nap, middle of the day, home at night, 7 o'clock, watching TV, I was out. And it's normal, but exhausting. Something else that came up, as I'm sure you all have thought about, morning sickness, nausea. It's something that up to 85% of women experience in the first trimester, so it's really common, but it really can make you miserable. And what I've found from patients and talking to other women are that some of these over-the-counter or lifestyle modification things don't always do the trick. Like, eat smaller meals, take B6, try some ginger or peppermint tea, and sometimes that just doesn't cut it. Morning sickness wasn't just in the morning. Yeah, that one for sure is poorly named because a lot of times morning sickness is just all-day sickness. I somehow dodged that bullet. And I remember I was one of the gals, the girl who did my scans, our sonographer, is just a bit ahead of me in pregnancy. And she was like, how are you feeling? Are you sick? How's it been? And I was like, no, I'm not really sick. I haven't really been sick. And she's like, you haven't thrown up at all? And I said, no. She's like, I'm sick 70% of the day. So very normal, very miserable. As we talked about before, if you want to check out our episode about morning sickness and some of what the evidence suggests can be helpful, the trick seemed to be small, frequent meals. Girlfriends I've had, OB-GYN residents, literally would keep a bagel in their pocket so they could nibble on it during the day, just like constantly keep something in your stomach. I found I actually didn't get sick at all in the morning. I found sometimes at night I would get like a little queasy, or like my stomach would feel a little bit ick, like almost nausea. And so I would eat something. Usually it was like a carby something, Pringles, Goldfish, cereal. One time I made myself pancakes at 10 p.m. That really helped. And looking back now, I really was kind of constantly eating in the evenings, week like 7 through 9, just like eating at night. And hey, that's what I had to do to survive. And also there is nausea medication that can make it better, prescription strength. So if you've tried all of the things, please, please, please talk to your OB-GYN about what prescription medications are available. It seems like in pregnancy, everybody tries to stay away from medications because, you know, you don't want to hurt your baby and all these things. And I totally get that. And if you do not need to take a medication, I don't want you to do that. But if you like can't get through your day because you're constantly nauseous and you're finding it hard to like exist and be a human being, just talk to your doctor and see what things would be okay for you. There's Reglan, there's Compazine, there's Zofran, there's these different things that are totally safe. So that's just my plug to like, don't suffer. There are some things that can make it better if the ginger tea isn't helping, okay? So the next kind of theme, very aptly put from a follower here, was you might stop pooping. That is all because of progesterone, largely progesterone. That is the hormone that your placenta is making, and that is really increasing as the weeks go by. And progesterone tends to slow things down. So it's going to slow down your digestion, it's going to slow down your gut, it will slow down your bowels. And so heartburn. I remember I was laying in bed one night, or I think I was laying watching TV, and I kind of was like coughing. I had this cough. I like felt like there was something in my chest. I had this little cough, and I laid down flat in bed later, and it was still there, and I just had this like something in my chest, and it dawned on me. I was like, oh, this is heartburn. This sucks. Because I'd never really experienced it before. So Tums, something to have on hand is that progesterone is kicking in, because it can just get worse during pregnancy, because on top of the progesterone, that little kid is your uterus is going to push up, and your sphincter, your esophagus isn't as tight as it used to be because of that progesterone. So there's that. Back to that you might not poop. Very common to experience constipation in the first trimester. And so take a mental note and get some Colace or some Miralax or whatever stool softener you like right at the beginning of pregnancy, so that you have it in your cupboard so you can be monitoring that. I remember early in the first trimester, like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, I bought like a triple pack of Colace because I wanted to make sure I had it if I needed it. And so you don't want to go days without pooping because you are going to feel miserable. Somebody made a comment that like it's all bloating and constipation and not actually a baby bump in the first trimester. And that is really true. Your stomach's kind of puffy because you're just bloated, and if you're not pooping regularly, you're gonna have a puffy stomach, and it just can also make you feel really miserable. So stay on top of your bowel regimen, okay? Miralax, Colace, gentle. They're a mush, not a push, so they're not like gonna give you diarrhea or cramps or anything like that. That's my pro tip. Another thing I think that surprised me and surprised some moms was how quickly like a food aversion can kick in. I know that surprised me. My sense of smell was like dramatically better than normal, and I was way more sensitive to heat. Like I have these leggings that come up like they're high waist and they like come almost to my belly button, and I just was like, oh, my belly's warm, I'm warm, I have to I can't wear these, because I would just get so warm and then get that icky, like nausea almost feeling. So I was surprised about how sensitive I was to temperature or smells or different things. And a lot of moms said that, like all of a sudden I couldn't drink coffee, or I didn't like chocolate. And it's surprising how early it kicks in. Something else that kind of came up from mamas on Instagram, they said bleeding in the first trimester within reason doesn't always mean something terrible. And I think that's something really important for moms, first-time moms, pregnant women to know. So bleeding's never normal in pregnancy, but it is very common. Up to about probably 1 in 3 women will experience some bleeding in their pregnancy, and it can be very surprising and catch you off guard. And so, the cervix is really fragile in pregnancy. It's your whole uterus, everything's getting this increasing blood supply. So sometimes after sex is a common time that you'll have some spotting. The next time you wipe, you might notice some spotting. You might just have some random spotting as that little embryo is burrowing in. There is always some bleeding, and sometimes it makes its way out and sometimes it doesn't. Some women have more of some more significant bleeding that you might see on ultrasound. If it's just spotting, light brown discharge, light pink, it's usually not anything to worry about and within the range of normal and not concerning. But if it is heavier, bright red bleeding, like a period, continues, over the course of a day or starts to get worse, those are reasons that you want to call your doctor, and those are more worrisome than just a little bit of spotting or a little bit of pink when you wipe. The really frustrating thing is there isn't anything you can do about vaginal bleeding in the first trimester. It is just something that you have to keep an eye on. But if you are having that bleeding, usually your OB-GYN is going to want you, if it's heavy bleeding, to come in to get an ultrasound to see what is going on and see if that little embryo is still doing okay. Something else that came up as a little bit of a recurring theme was this idea of, I don't have any pregnancy symptoms. I don't feel pregnant at all. And how much anxiety or worry that can cause. And I would say that was what kind of the boat I fell into. Most of the time I wouldn't have known I was pregnant if I didn't know better. And that was very anxiety provoking sometimes. I was like just a twinge of nausea or something to make me feel like something's happening in here. I remember when I went and got that first ultrasound, it saw a heartbeat and I was like, oh, I feel great, but things actually are happening in there. And that was really reassuring. But I remember, a couple weeks after that scan, it was some Wednesday night and I was just like, I feel fine. Is anything happening? I'm 8 or 9 weeks and what if this baby isn't okay? And so I really deeply understood that anxiety about something being wrong when you don't really feel any pregnancy symptoms. And I was really surprised by that. Rational OB-GYN brain says it's fine. But mom brain or whatever this is said, I'm nervous. The other thing was COVID. And that is one that you don't really know how you're going to feel about it until you are living through it. I remember when we were thinking about getting pregnant versus not, one of the things we thought about obviously was COVID, because we were trying to get pregnant during the peak of the pandemic. And we kind of looked at it and said, if we get pregnant during COVID, during this pandemic, is that going to stress us out more? Is that going to bring me more stress? Or is that pregnancy going to be a welcome distraction and bring us some joy and kind of balanced, how was I going to feel about that? How did Kurt feel about that? And we definitely felt like, obviously, there are a lot of unknowns with COVID, but we thought that it would be a fun distraction, and here we are knocked up. And I have felt, for the most part, it is a lovely distraction and something to look forward to. But there is this fear of the unknown. There's not a lot of data about COVID and pregnancy right now. You think about it, the pandemic started in March. It's December, so we have 9-ish months of data. So people that were getting pregnant at the beginning of the pandemic are just now having their babies. So we are learning so much every day, but we don't have all of the answers. And things that help me are data and having, being able to look things up, and you just can't right now. So I know a lot of mamas have felt this way. COVID is really isolating in terms of pregnancy care. Appointments may not be as frequent as they normally were, or you may have telehealth visits, and your partner cannot go to the visits. One person, you have to wear a mask, your provider's wearing a mask and a face shield. And so all these things that you are looking forward to doing with your person, like that first ultrasound and hearing the baby's heartbeat, you miss out on. And that's really hard. Like, I know it was hard for me. I know it was hard for Kurt. It was something we looked forward to, and it's just totally not what we expected. God willing, he's going to be able to come to the delivery, because I tell you what, I would be considering a home birth if he couldn't. Not really. That's joking. I would not. This girl's getting an epidural, but like, he's my person and my support person, and I can't imagine laboring without my person. And I know there are mamas that did that at the beginning of the pandemic, and I can't even begin to fathom that and how strong those women had to be to do that. We're actually going to do an episode next week all about COVID, where we're at with the data right now and the evidence on COVID, what the pregnancy outcomes are, some tips for coping in the dealing with being in the hospital with COVID, and having a baby and all those things. So if you want to know more about COVID, subscribe and come back next week. Another thing that came up a lot that mamas on Instagram wish they knew was kind of how really fearful they would be of having a miscarriage. Your chances of miscarriage are about 1 in 4. And so that is not a small number. A lot of women actually kind of don't share about their pregnancies. That's kind of, we announce our pregnancy after the first trimester or whatever. That kind of comes back to, you don't share about your pregnancy unless you would also want to share about a miscarriage. And I knew that, we obviously shared very early, because I feel very strongly, one, we need to normalize talking about miscarriage and talking about all these different pregnancy things. But also I knew that I would want support from people if I had a miscarriage. I think the last thing that I wish I had known about the first trimester was how not irrational I would be. The hormones are a real thing. Kurt's not here to go into that, but there's this like rational person brain, and then there's like mom brain anxiety, first trimester anxiety. I think it all comes back to that first trimester anxiety. But the example I'm thinking of was sometime 6-7 weeks, I don't know. I took a hot bath, which is fine, right? You're not supposed to get in a hot tub and stay in there for 15 minutes, but it's fine to take a hot bath. I tell patients this on a weekly basis. Yes, it's fine to take a hot bath. Yes, but yeah. I tell you what, I took a hot bath. I had this like, is this okay? Is this too hot? I just freaked out. I got out of the tub and I literally took my temperature. It's COVID, and I had one of those like scanner gun, like temperature gun things. Took my temperature because I was like, 98.6. So my rational brain, doctor brain says, this is fine. This is fine. It's fine. And then this, I don't know, mom worry, anxiety says, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? So that I have found very surprising and kind of funny. And it's something described by a lot of other moms that you just kind of question everything. And I'm Googling all these different things that I know, but it's very real. So apparently it continues until forever. So I will be worrying about baby girl for a long time. Let me see. I'm going to see if there is anything else we kind of haven't covered. The exhaustion, bagels are your best friend. You'll sleep forever and that's okay. Morning sickness isn't just in the morning. Weight gain. It's okay to lose weight. The weight gain is variable for women Obviously, if you're a normal, healthy weight, your OB is gonna tell you that, they want you to gain between 25 and 35 pounds in the course of the pregnancy. Sometimes women gain 10 pounds in the first trimester, and sometimes women don't gain any weight, or they lose some weight in the first trimester because you're nauseous, you don't feel well, you're throwing up, and that's okay. I remember one of my girlfriends in residency being 15-ish plus weeks along and saying to our midwife, like, hey, I haven't gained any weight yet, I'm kind of nervous. And she said, relax, it's okay, you will. Don't worry about it. So if you're one of the mamas who is falling into that, hey, I lost weight in the first trimester, or I didn't gain weight, don't tell your friends, because your pregnant mom friend who gained 15 pounds in the first trimester is not going to be a big fan. But it's okay. If you are on the spectrum of you gain 15 pounds in the first trimester, just keep an eye on it. You are shooting for 25 to 35 pounds. You've got lots of time to gain that weight. Make sure you're eating healthy, exercising as much as you can, and you can't obsess about your weight. Buy some bigger pants. Feel comfortable. I'm living in leggings. So that kind of covers most of the things I wish I knew and other mamas wish they knew about the first trimester. And so I want to leave you with the advice that I give to my newly pregnant mamas when I see them in clinic. It's super quick, just kind of an overview of first trimester stuff, and hopefully it's an easy list for you to remember. So the first thing, food. Everybody wants to know about food, what's okay to eat, how should they eat, etc. So I always tell them that small frequent meals are probably going to be your best friend in terms of helping with that nausea. Keeping something in your stomach all the time, not having an empty stomach, really seems to help. Keep a bagel in your pocket so you can nibble on it through the day, or a bag of goldfish, or whatever it is that works for you. In terms of things you can't eat, you want to avoid raw fish. You want to heat up lunch meat to steaming just to be really safe. And coffee is okay. Everybody wants to know if they can still have their coffee, and you absolutely can. It's okay to have a cup or two. The constipation and the heartburn, that progesterone is really going to start increasing as your placenta starts making it week 8, week 9. And so I want you to get that Miralax or Colace or whatever, and some Tums to have in your medicine cabinet in case you need it. You can fly on a plane. Usually that is totally fine up until 34, 35 weeks. Depends on what your OB is comfortable with, where you have to go, etc. But you are pregnant. You are a normal person. Pregnancy is a state of wellness. And so you can, for the most part, keep living your life. Don't clean your cat litter boxes. Scooping dog poop is okay, but cat litter or cat poop can sometimes have what's called toxoplasmosis in it. Some people are already immune, some people are not, so it's just best if you let your partner do that while you're pregnant. Vaginal bleeding, as I talked about earlier, it's common. And a little bit of spotting is really not something to worry about. If you have bleeding like a period or it continues on, we want you to call us right away. And lastly, exercise is fine. If you have been exercising, keep doing whatever you're doing. If you are not exercising, it is okay to start. Whatever feels good, just move your body. There's lots of programs on YouTube or different things online. We have a great episode all about exercise and pregnancy that you guys can check out. But that is my little spiel for my patients, and I hope that it helps you. If you guys have any questions, please leave them below. If there is anything you wish you had known about the first trimester that we didn't cover, share it in the comments. Me and the other mamas here will get a good laugh about it. And otherwise, thank you for following along with our channel. We will be back next week with an episode all about COVID, and we look forward to seeing you then. Later.
We're doctors.
But not your doctors.
Anything we've said in this video is for education or entertainment purposes only.
It is not medical advice.
Any specific medical questions you have should be directed to your provider.